Okay, for a look at what is making news in print and online this morning, we're joined by a rural podcaster and PhD candidate at Deakin University, Kirsten Dioprese. Kirsten, good morning.
Good morning, Emma. Good morning, Catherine.
Okay, so you're going to start with the story on ABC Online, something we've been talking about this morning as well, and that's Australia's back at the UN and its shift in its vote. Can you explain what's happened?
Yeah, look, it's a big event on the global stage. So Australia is actually one of 155 countries which has backed this draft UN proposal. And this particular resolution calls on the UN to recognise the permanent sovereignty of Palestinians to natural resources in the occupied territories. And the US voted against this proposal, as did Israel. And the proposal demands that Israel stops destroying infrastructure, including water and sewage pipelines, electricity networks. And the Australia, Israel and Jewish Affairs Council said Australia had consistently abstained from voting or voted against the proposal since 2003. And a spokesperson for the Foreign Affairs Minister, Penny Wong, had said that the resolution reaffirms calls with the UN for a two-state solution. So this proposal will now go to the UN General Assembly for a final vote. So significant on many fronts, really, with the Australian government breaking ranks with the US. And really that's been happening a bit this week. And we know that Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister, is holding global trade talks at a business talk ahead of APEC in Lima in Peru. And that's really to talk about trade. And of course, Donald Trump, the president-elect of US, has promised to impose tariffs on imports, which is, of course, concerning many countries and could, I suppose, lead to problems globally. You know, it could slow down growth globally. And from an Australian perspective, you know, there's plenty of concerns here in agriculture, where I am part of that sector. There's a lot of concern, particularly around red meat. It's been a great sort of export to the US of late because it's been so dry in the US. So everyone's closely watching whether the US will indeed put in those those tariffs, if you like. So, yeah, Anthony Albanese, Penny Wong, it's been a big week for Australian politics, and particularly with a new president coming in and trying to take that line of being still strident in what Australia wants, but also keeping that relationship friendly.
Yeah.
Worrying times for farmers, as you say, Kirsten. I'm obsessed with Jeremy Clarkson's farm at the moment. I could go rogue and just take this conversation a whole different way. But let's have a look at the front page of the Australian Financial Review. And as we knew, hope's fading now for that rate cut before the general election.
Yeah, that's right. And I suppose that really brings it back home, doesn't it, to the reality of what voters might be thinking about and what the Prime Minister might be thinking about too. And NAB has interestingly broke with the rest of the Big Four banks yesterday, pushing back its forecast for the RBA's first rate cut from February to May. So NAB sort of spoke about the upside risks to inflation and the continuing strength in the jobs market. But the other banks, the Commonwealth, ANZ and Westpac, the other ones that make up the Big Four, still expect the RBA to cut the cash rate from 4.35% to 4.1% in February. So, you know, some of those geopolitical tensions that I spoke about earlier are really playing into this discussion. You know, economists are really watching whether that's going to make it even harder for the Reserve Bank to cut rates because we might see a rise in global inflation if those tensions continue. And of course, we know that there's a federal election coming up, so expected that the Prime Minister would want to see a rate cut as well by the Reserve Bank before heading to the polls.
Yeah, certainly very interesting with that one, and whether that will happen now, I guess more doubt has come into play. Let's go to The Age now, because another story that we've been following this morning and indeed this week is this question about the VCE exams for Year 12 students in Victoria and these hidden questions. What's the latest on that one?
Yeah, look, it's really been the talk of the town across Victoria as people try and figure out what exactly happened, and indeed that's what the Victorian government is now doing. So it's been such a stressful time for our Year 12 school leavers, and exams have sort of finally ended or nearly ended, and it's now sort of the stress has kind of turned to the government systems because of this exam bungle. So this is where Victoria's Curriculum Authority unintentionally published test questions that essentially gave thousands of students an advantage over others. And so now the Victorian Education Minister, Ben Carroll, has ordered a full review, and the government's also said it will install an independent monitor to oversee next year's exams. And what sort of happened, and again, like, it's been the talk of the town, is how did this happen?
Has been.
Yeah, the questions were published. They were online. They were taken down, but some students had already downloaded it from a sample assessment. And then there's also an online tool that allows you to access archived content. So students were able to essentially find it hidden on these documents and copy and paste it. And so it was legal studies, Australian politics, business management were the main subjects affected. But we'll be hearing more about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And irrespective of whether you say students, manage to cheat or anything, it's just, I think, quite unsettling for all students really to hear about this stuff. Kirsten, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Have a great day and a great weekend.
Thank you. And I'm glad we've got a fan of Jeremy Clarkson. We need Jeremy Clarkson.
We need a whole segment on his farm. I promise we'll do that in future. Thanks so much.